And, I just want to say this, like, I cannot say, and I know a couple of people have mentioned this, but I cannot say enough about you and your team. And I will tell you on a personal level, I have a lot going on behind the scenes with someone who is very ill that I've been the support person for the last few months.
Mhm.
And every time I would say to my husband, I don't know if I could do this. I have too many priorities. I have to be there for this person. I would hear your voice in my head. And even, just the support of the week. So, we would have our weekly meetings and we would touch base with each other through the process of writing this book. And I think that's the other message I have for people. People, they don't always reach out. And there's so many of us. I mean, look at all the people that are on here today. There
Yeah.
are so many of us. We have been there. We have done it. We are in a different place now. We still have a lot. We're always growing and changing. I'm always learning. I mean, my life just changed just taking a hypnosis weekend class with Transform Destiny right before COVID.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why I was there. I've run my business so long. Why am I there? What am I doing there? And I've said this to you before, if I had no idea like what I learned in that, and then that just went on to the next thing. So my message to anybody who's watching this today is you can do it.
Yeah.
We did it. You can do it. Focus on the mindset, and you have to feel deserving. And I always joke around. I know I heard you hear this one time. I always tell people, throw out those stupid sticky notes. Because if you're posting sticky notes all around, but you don't really feel deserving,
Yeah.
that's just a piece of it. It's not the solution to it.
Yeah. And I think, there is, there are, I always talk about, there are these messages that are taught to us when we're young. And sometimes we're 2 or 3 years old when we hear these things. Like, you've probably heard me talk about stranger danger before.
Oh my God, yes.
I think it's the root cause of social anxiety disorder, which is plaguing people in the world right now, because we were taught at a very young age that strangers are dangerous. And now, thankfully, they're starting to change the message. The message is now, don't be aware of strangers, be wary of strange people. Children are intimately aware of when somebody's strange, but strangers are great people. Strangers are wonderful people. They're 99% of them have wonderful intentions and are great. But that message gets grown up with us deep in the subconscious mind. And I feel like this whole thing about deserving is one of those things. Our parents, especially the older generations, they taught us when we were younger that we had to work for everything. You
Right.
don't deserve it unless you worked for it. But, one of the things that I've learned over the years, and this is one of the keys to my successes, I've learned that I don't have to work to be wealthy. What I have to do is provide massive value to people. Can I do that without working? Yes. That's how Kayla and I traveled the world full time for 5 years,
Right.
working only a
Right.
few hours a day, because there are ways, especially now with technology, that you can take what you know and package it, right? You can publish a book, for example. This book guaranteed will outlive me, right? Guaranteed. All of my books will. Probably my home studies will, because years ago, one of my values shifted. I used to have a value that was called the ripple, right? Which is the idea that one person can't change the world, but one person could be like that pebble in the pond and create a
Right.
ripple effect through others. And so that was part of my mission, was to be the pebble and create the ripple. But that value shifted for me about 11 years ago. And it just shifted in label. But, we talk about linguistics a lot and how
Mm-hmm.
things mean. The label became so much more important because it includes the ripple. But my value became legacy. And for the first time ever, the whole idea that I want what I leave behind, Steve Jobs said it himself. I want to leave an
Love that.
indelible mark on the earth that said that I was
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the reasons why I loved, just got goosebumps. It's one of the reasons why I love doing things like this. We can have an impact that goes far beyond our physical existence here in this plane. It's so powerful.
I love NLP because, I started, so I've been doing psychic work. So I'm more from the spiritual background. I
Mm.
did psychic work for years. I still do it, healing work. And one of the things that I learned really early on, and I'm probably like the enemy of most psychics because I work completely different. Like, I'm all about taking your power back, right?
Yeah.
Not like, what am I supposed to do? And what I realized, like, people were always coming to me and going, what are the cards telling me to do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And the thing that like breaks my heart is when I'm working with people, you know, whether you call it intuitive gut instinct, whatever you feel comfortable calling it, like I see the lives people could have. And I
Yeah.
could never like, I always joke around with my clients, if I had a superpower, my superpower would be I would want to be able to plug you into my head so you could see what I see for you.
Mm,
That would be my superpower.
I love
And
it.
I feel like NLP is that link. It's that technique that you need. It's that information that you need to help people see what their full potential is. And we all, and I did this for years, like I think we all think someone has some secret formula that we don't have access to. Oh, well, they were born wealthy, or
Yeah.
oh, their parents own their own business, or oh, you know, their husbands are paying for that, whatever. Like everybody always thinks someone has something.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I've worked with so many people, and it's such a blessing because I've known a lot of people for the entire years that I've been doing this work. So I was there for the journey with them,
Yeah.
right? And the only difference between the people who are successful, and when we say successful, I don't only mean money, I mean health, I mean relationships, I mean living your life like you're talking about, traveling and just really, you know, living your soul life, right?
Yeah.
The only difference between the people that are successful and the people that aren't are the people that are successful felt deserving and they never gave up.
Mhm.
That's the other big thing,
Yeah.
right? People think like they hit a bump in the road and they're like, oh, I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Yep.
And I always think those are just like rerouting points to make you see how bad do you want it, right? And, you know, like with you guys, your team, and, you know, you're that piece to go, all right, here's how you get it done, right? You hit that block, here's how you move past it. Because I will tell you, there's nothing you can come up with that Michael can't find a workaround for it in the mindset world. So
I
it's
love
been
it.
amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
I love what you said, you know, that people will look at somebody and go, well, they must have an advantage of some sort. But, you know, you look at the Forbes 400, which is the 400 richest people in the world,
Mhm.
billionaires. They're all billionaires. And I believe it's 80% of them did not come from wealth, and 60% of them don't have college degrees. Yet people will go, well, they're only successful because they inherited trust fund baby. You know, most trust fund babies squander their money. They don't
Right.
maintain wealth. They don't do anything of consequence with it. There are people who think that maybe it has to do with how they're raised or whatever. I don't know. But
Right.
yeah, the majority of people who inherit wealth without working for it actually don't retain it.
I was just going to say, like, look at Lotto, right? Because that's a big block. People say, oh, if I had money, right?
Yeah.
Oh, if I had money. Look at how many people win Lotto, and a year later, they have nothing left,
Yeah. There's been books written
right?
about it.
Yeah.
They could win $20 million within 2 to 5 years. They're broke. They usually have less than $0. They're in debt, and many are suicidal and depressed. They say that winning the money was the worst thing that ever happened to them. You
Yeah.
know, so people look at these things where they go, oh, that person went to an Ivy League college. You know how many people go to an Ivy League college and end up making a $30,000, $40,000 a year salary doing
Right.
nothing, right? But most of the time, these people, there's something deeper. There's something that they're really passionate about, which is, I love that you tapped into that. There's a passion
Mhm.
that drives them. And, you know, a deservedness definitely is like the rocket booster for it. I think there are some people who achieve success without feeling deserving. You know,
Right.
I've talked about some of those public figures. I feel like Tiger Woods is one of those people who's so away motivated, he succeeded. Most
Hmm.
people who are away motivated don't succeed. They sabotage in life. They go up and down. Well,
Right.
he succeeded for so long because he hit the ceiling. But then, I mean, now look at his life the last 10 years. He's got that sabotage
Hmm.
cycle. And I do feel like it's obviously outside projection. But
Right.
I think people can achieve success without deserving, but it's so hard. And then it's not worth it. You know,
Right.
the deservingness, the knowing that you came here for a reason and you deserve to have success and you deserve to have happiness. It doesn't mean you don't have to work for it, because there's a difference between deserving and earning, right? But it doesn't mean you don't have to put any, you know, action or effort into it.
Right.
But you deserve it just by birth, right?
And
You
what's
know?
crazy is like I always tell people, everybody really knows what they need to do deep down inside.
Yeah.
You know, I always say like the irony about what I do for a living is nobody really ever needs to come to me,
Yeah.
because you know in your heart, your soul, whatever you feel comfortable calling it, what your passion's really about. You just need that feeling of feeling deserving to go ahead and get the book So you learn the tools to get it.
I love it. So other than in the book, where can people find you?
So the easiest, spiritquestnc.com. I have a wonderful healing center I'm actually in Southern Pines, North Carolina. So
Nice.
we're in a cute little area, and I love my life. My husband and I run the healing center. I have like the greatest clientele. I've been getting text messages and emails all day long. It's been an amazing day. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Congratulations, #1 best-selling author.
Thank you.
I love it. All right. Thanks for coming on.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for the
you.
opportunity. Bye.
And next we have Rosalito, or as I like to call him, Lido. How you doing, Lido?
Hello, Michael. I am. This has been so surreal for me yesterday. I was like in tears talking to my dad.
Oh, I love it. Let's see. Where is your chapter? Wait a minute, Lido. Are you the next one in the list? Hang on a second here. Yes, you are the next one in the list. I don't think I got your chapter name in here. Either that or I'm just lost right now. Where did your chapter name go?
17.
17, I know. Oh, there it is. Bang. There we go. Caring for yourself, the surprising link between self-care and positivity. I love it. Tell us, what got you into this and why did you choose this chapter to write?
Well, I believe that a lot of us, especially coming from my background culturally, we are basically geared towards helping others. And as a result for that, you would find that most people like me would rather serve others first rather than caring for myself. And I see that in my dad right now. He's basically a full-time caregiver for my mom, and you really don't want to go to that rabbit hole. If you want, and that whole confidence thing, being able to be comfortable with your own skin. And I love just the way, sometimes I would walk into a supermarket and the cashier would say, "Oh, you have so much nice skin," and I was like, "Would you like to touch it? Here." Yep. That's the thing. So self-care and like how you sleep, what you consume, like it was mentioned earlier, what you consume in your mind and with your mouth. And we are basically like an accumulation of what we consume, right? And who are we really? And that's basically the message what I'm trying to send here.
I love it. Your chapter is one that's important to me because I did not self-care for the majority of my life. This is a newer learning for me, and really, especially in the last, I would say, 10, 11 years, 12 years, maybe, this has become a realization for me. And I didn't realize that self-care is others' care. People don't make that connection. I think most people, and there is a cultural aspect to that as well. You look at cultures like Hispanic cultures and Filipino culture,
absolutely,
many other cultures, family is more important than self.
Yes.
Right. In Asian cultures, the last name comes before the first name because who you're family of is more important than who you are as an individual. And so there's definitely a cultural tie into this, but even in Western cultures, we have this belief that we're supposed to just do everything for everyone else. And, what are the side effects of that?
And as you were saying that earlier, I kind of remember the times when I have that those conversations with my aunts. They passed away, and they would say, "Oh, when you grow up, when I grow old, you have to look at the language. You have to take care of me." Okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, and here I am at 7 years old. I was like, yes, because because you love me so much, right? You're gonna take care of me when I grow old, and I was like, oh yes, and do that and do this. So that whole mindset gets programmed into your brain, wherein you have to kind of give up your life for others. Yeah. And I see that in some of my cousins as well, wherein they would put the needs of others. And
Yeah.
well, I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's, there's a metaphor that I like to use when it comes to this, which is that, let's say that you were the head of household, breadwinner, right? Maybe a single parent, you've got 3-4 children. If you neglected to put food in the cabinets at home, and you did that for a long time, what would happen to that person? What would happen to that parent? What would happen to the kids? Number one, right? The kids would be starving. And number two, the parent would probably go to jail. I mean, it's literally criminal to not provide food for your children. When we think in physical terms like that, of, things that I put in the cabinet, we realize, there's a responsibility for us to fill the cabinets for other people. But when it comes to our energy, somehow we forget that. And we
Absolutely.
forget we need to fill ourselves first in order to provide for other people. Most people are walking around, it's like what happens when a person, the little bar on their phone goes red, right? Oh my God, I need to find a charger. We stop everything to find a charger to charge our phone, but we don't do that for ourselves. Most people are walking around on the last bar, a red bar, and barely filling themselves up.
Yeah, and I was amazed. I was just listening to what you were saying earlier, and I was like, oh my God. It sounds like I was listening to myself, as a programmer. And that's basically why I got drawn to you. It's just like you could spend so much nights trying to code and trying to figure out where did I go wrong with the if and then statement, or the case or whatever it is, or why is it not updating? Why is it doing this? And and then you kind of like bring your work home, and then suddenly like, there's no work-life balance. There's no boundaries, and that's basically one of the things that I believe I put in there. Like you have to allow yourself. Who was that who said you have to allow that white space in your life to actually heal yourself? And Elizabeth mentioned about sleep, and not a lot of people know this. You have to actually have at least 8 to 9 hours of sleep in order for your body to start healing. And what is it that are you taking care of your gut? Are you basically making sure that all those gunk, think about it. I mean, not a lot of cultures do this, but when they eat those internal organ dishes, when they clean it up, most of the animals are vegetarian, but their guts are full of fat. Why is that? I mean, especially us, a lot of us are indiscriminately eat whatever, right?
Yeah.
And we just shove it down in our mouth, not even thinking. And this is basically our house. This body. This is not us. Who is Rosalito really? It's not this body, right? I just happen to be the single cell winner from my dad, and then after that, I am the accumulation. Who am I right now? Before I was 50, and like you, I was 240 pounds. Now I'm 170. It didn't take an instant, like you mentioned to Helen. Took years and a lot of changing. And I'm so thankful that I run into you when I did. And it's an ongoing journey. Like you said, time is not a constant. It always goes on. And I practice what I preach. I have you as my coach. Christopher, I have you as my mentor. And of course, everybody needs one.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. It's so funny. John, earlier we were talking about gratitude. And one of the things I mentioned briefly was that I was grateful for COVID. And like he's like, how could anybody be grateful for COVID? COVID had so many positive impacts on my life. Even though I understand there were negative things, I'm acknowledging that there were, people who passed away even. But in my life, it changed the direction of a lot of things. It transformed destiny. 2020 was our best year ever. We helped more people during that time of crisis than we'd helped in any other year before. And we were financially rewarded for that. But more importantly than that, in January 2021, I was diagnosed with COVID. I didn't think I had it. I stayed at home for 10 days, getting worse and worse and worse to the point where I couldn't breathe. And I finally, the day that I woke up, I couldn't even get my legs out of bed. I was so out of breath and out of energy. And I could barely say to Kayla, I couldn't even say I need to go to the hospital. I just said, I need to go. And she said, to the hospital. And I just nodded my head. And that's when I found out that I have type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is one of the greatest silent killers in the world, and a cause for most health problems. And I was not eating healthy. And so I'm grateful for COVID because it got me aware of the fact that I was mistreating my body, which is, see, people look at type 2 diabetes and they go, well, that's a diagnosis. You have a disease. No, I have a behavior. I'm mistreating my body. The diagnosis is
Absolutely.
the result of that, right?
Mhm.
So I've got my glucose monitor. I measure my blood sugar every day. I eat healthy. I'm down 40 something pounds. And, one of the big things for me, I don't talk about this much, but Kayla's 10 years younger than me. And that was the first time where I thought to myself, I don't want her to have to go through the experience of losing me early. If I want to care for her, I have to be well myself. And
Yes.
that was a big motivator for me getting healthy in my life. And that all came down to COVID, right? So we can find gratitude in everything. And, even though I became obsessed with caring for myself, I'm caring for myself so that I can care for her.
Yes, isn't that a wonderful thing? How can you be at cost to find the positivity in a negative thing?
Yeah.
And not a lot of people do that. And I'm as well. I myself, I am so grateful that I found Transform Destiny. It's just the team has been wonderful. Being able to spend my time among positive thinking people. I feel awesome.
I love it. And we're glad you found us too. And there's the book. If you want to get the book, it's www.becomingpositivelyawesome.com. It is $5.42 today and tomorrow. And for that tiny, meager investment, which we make no profit on, it's the lowest price we could make it, you'll actually get $1,000 worth of gifts for supporting us in the launch, as long as you buy it today or tomorrow, the 15th or the 16th. And then there's more gifts inside the book as well. So it's even more than $1,000. So tell us, you're on an interesting journey because you're sort of on my journey that I was on 20 years ago, 23 years ago. You have been a programmer by trade, and then you stumbled across NLP. Yeah. But you're moving into the new identity of being a coach. So tell us about, who do you like to help? And as you move into your new career, into this new era for you, who do you like to help, and what brings you joy in that, and where can people find you? We got about 3 minutes.
I like to help, especially my ideal client would be a Filipino that actually gone through some abuse growing up, being bullied, and doesn't feel like they could achieve anything. There was a time when I actually came to the Philippines from the Philippines in 1996 with only $20 in my pocket. That's something that I can help with. And I believe I heard from someone that actually said that you go through these trials and tribulations because it's not because the universe is conspiring, or God, or whoever you want to call it, right? God is trying to punish you. It's about learning from that experience and being able to pay it forward and basically get people to learn from it as well. And you have something to teach. And that's why, and a lot of people think that they bring their knowledge to the grave. And, this is basically why I'm doing this. And I'm so grateful for ethical influence now.
I love it. He's actually referring to something we just announced, that we're going through a rebrand with our sister company, Influence to Profit, will now become Ethical Marketing Academy, which I'm really, really excited about. It's a brand that's much more in alignment with our vision and our mission and our values. So that'll be coming soon. I love it. And Rosalito is now a trainer of NLP.
Yes.
And coach. And what's your website, Rosalito?
My website is right now, it's just my name, rosalitodelosreyes.com. You can learn about me, and you can find me on Facebook and send me a message. I'm kind of like a little selective now on who I talk to, and but do connect, and let's see if I can help you.
I love it. Well, let's check our stats and we'll see where we're at. Becoming Positively Awesome on Amazon. Here we go. Updated stats. Nope, not updated yet.
Awesome.
We're getting there. I think next time this updates, we're going to be in the top 100.
Yeah, I know.
mean, we've got so many people. So get this. Susie just said in chat, let me see if I can find it. She just said, I sent a copy of the book to former Denver Broncos Mark Jackson to check out Becoming Positively Awesome. Congratulations. I love that. Yay. Thank you, Susie. And thank you for everyone who's supporting us. Thank you, Rosalito, for
all right. Thank you so much, Michael.
Congratulations,
This has
best-selling
been
author.
a surreal and wonderful experience for me.
I love it. Thank you. All right, next we have Aloha McGregor. How you doing, Aloha?
I am doing fantastic. I thank you so much for this opportunity to just talk about me and what I do.
I love it. I love it. So let's start with that. Tell us about who you are, what you do, and what got you into all this.
I am a mental health counselor. So I do clinical mental health. So I deal with people with depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder and all other kinds of diagnosable issues, diseases. And the reason why I got into the next level, when I started mental health counseling, my foundation is cognitive behavioral therapy. And just the knowledge that what we think makes us feel and our feelings impact our behavior just changed everything for me. I experienced hypnosis myself because I was struggling with some stuff, and being able to naturally and organically change my mindset. And going through hypnosis, I decided, yeah, this thing is great and I can offer it to other people. So I went through some training. I didn't feel real comfortable with the process that I went through originally. And then I went through Transform Destinies training. And in there, they started talking about the reticular activating system and how we communicate with ourselves. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what I need for me, but what I also need to be able to touch my clients on a different level. So it was just a journey of being able to help my clients understand that if we could just pay attention to the conversations, the stories that we're having with ourselves, we can have the life that we want. But right now we're just talking ourselves out of it. But I noticed that our negativity is so embedded and imprinted in us that naturally it's just difficult. It's so easy to say that I can and I won't and I don't, that it takes practice and intentionality to be able to get out of it. So just helping people understand that, and then using NLP to kind of minimize the work that it takes going into doing that. So it's just all about me helping my clients be able to live freely and get over some of the stuff that they've been through without so much of the work and so long of a period of a time. Sometimes we can't deal with our traumas because we are so emotionally connected to them that we can't even talk about them. So being able to help people release the emotions connected to the trauma and then decide, do I actually still need to process this? Because sometimes after disconnecting emotionally from them, I don't even need to process it anymore. I am a counselor. I believe in counseling. It is necessary. It is needed. But sometimes part of that counseling could be bypassed into moving forward instead of just staying where we are and talking about it. So talking about it is necessary. Don't get me wrong. Psychotherapy is needed. But sometimes we can skip some of the steps. And just bypass some of that hard, laboring, arduous work that goes into that.
Right. And how often are people just re-anchoring themselves to the problem if they're talking about it, as opposed to getting the epiphany that they need, Yeah. So you mentioned the reticular activating system. This is something I love. So why don't you give a little definition of the RAS and what it's for, or at least how it can be used?
Activating system. And I always have to preface this. We were designed. We were given all of these things. We have a filter. And it filters out stuff that doesn't line up to what's important to us, and it filters in everything that does. There is so much information out there that if we actually were aware of it all, we go crazy. So we were designed in a way that gets rid of the stuff that we don't need, and it brings in the stuff that we do. But the messed up thing about that is it works, whether we're looking at what's actually important to us or not. So when we think about filtering out, things that are not important to us. It just decides what's important to us by what we focus on, what we think about, what we talk about. So when we talk about the part of the thing that's bad or negative, our senses become aware of all of those things that support that. So if I say something like, I'm going to have a bad day, the focus is on a bad day. So what I get from my environment with my senses support the fact that I should actually have a bad day instead of the other way around. So if I can just really focus on what's actually important to me and talk about those things and think about those things, I can see evidence that these things are possible. And that's why, I talk to my clients about affirmations and stuff, and they're like, that's not true. I don't believe that. If you can just say it, you can see it. And they're like, what did that mean? What did that mean? If you say, I am beautiful, your design, your natural self will start to notice the parts of you that are beautiful. And if I can see one speck that on me is beautiful, then my reticular activating system begins to show me other things. And now I see this and I believe it more and I believe it more and I see more and I believe it more and I see more. So now when I say that I'm beautiful, I believe it because I've gotten all this evidence that it's true. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. The RAS in the brain can be used one of two ways, right? It can either be the reticular automatic system, which is what most people use it as, or the reticular activating system, where you're being intentional and you're choosing what to bring in. And this goes right back to what we talk about with NLP, is deletion, distortion, generalization.
Yeah.
The RAS is in charge of that. What you're bringing in over 2 million bits of information and filtering it down to just 126 bits the conscious mind gets. And that all comes down to the RAS. The beautiful thing is, even though your RAS may start as a reticular automation system based on programming that you already have, if you become intentional and you make it an activating system where you're choosing what to bring into your reality, then that then becomes your new automated system. You don't have to every day of your life focus on being positive, right? It's one of the reasons why I like the title of the book, Becoming Positively Awesome. It's not acting positively awesome or thinking positively. It's becoming positively awesome. And once you become it, you practice this for a short period of time. This is what, long before I ever learned NLP, I started focusing on changing just the enemy that was in my head, all those negative thoughts that I had, and just replacing them. And you've heard my story, right? I'd interrupt the pattern. I'd clap really loud or stop myself and then just pile positive thoughts on. One of the things I like that you talk about in there is that your thoughts, people go, I can't change my thoughts. They're automatic. That's not true. Your thoughts are habitual. There's a difference between automatic and habitual. Automatic is something you can't control. Habitual is something you can. Yes, you're going to have negative thoughts that come up. What you need to do is stop them and then change your thinking and create a new pattern that will start to become automatic.
And doing it on purpose, intentionally, because we are humans. We are naturally going to probably, most of the time, until we practice it, think the negative thing. So we have to do it on purpose. We have to be intentional about practicing thinking positive. And I tell my clients all the time, some stuff you can't turn around, you can't make it pretty, you can't make it positive. But the goal is, and our responsibility is to make it less negative or find that one thing that makes it a little better, because then that allows us to emotionally handle things differently. We have to do it on purpose. It's not going to happen by itself, because most of the people that I see are in a negative place.
Yeah. And it's funny because, even a couple of chapters in the book, people say, people used to say those positive things to me and it would just annoy me. And I get angry at them for saying those positive things. But, you have to say positive things to yourself. And I think this goes back, is one of my theories. It goes back to one of those things we're taught when we're so young, 2 or 3 years old. We're taught things that are meant to be positive, but at 2 or 3 years old, we can't understand the scope of them. So they become restrictive. So, the examples I use, stranger danger. And one of them is don't be a braggart. I was taught anytime I said something nice about, look at what toy I've got, or look at what I did, or this to my friends, my mom would pull me aside, say, nobody likes a braggart, stop bragging. What does that translate into, right? Don't say nice things about yourself.
Right.
And since our internal behavior matches our external behavior, if we're not allowed to say nice things about ourselves, we're not allowed to say nice things about ourselves. Right. And I think this is what happens when this gets layered in at such a young age. And then we won't even say nice things about ourselves in our own head, which, by the way, in your own head, you should be the most fabulous, amazing, wonderful person in the world. We wait for other people to validate that in us. And because most people are so wrapped up in their own stuff, they don't validate that for us. And then, I feel like a lot of people, that's where their self-esteem issues come from and everything else. It's self-esteem, not others' esteem. Don't wait for other people to validate you. Validate yourself.
Right.
You know, and that's a big part of the work that you do.
It is.
Yeah.
And I love it.
That's so cool. So what was the thing that really like sparked this for you? You said you were going through some challenges in your own life as a therapist. Can you do CBT on yourself? I don't even know the answer to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just me practicing what I do, what I preach, just reframing my thoughts, restructuring my thoughts, just being able to just sit down and pay attention to what I'm thinking about and the language that I'm using when I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Naturally, it's most of us will say, I'm not going to have a bad day. That's the example I use all the time. But really, I'm setting myself up to have a bad day. So just being real intentional myself about the language that I use. I say all the time, it's not always just what you say, it's how you say it, because I'm not going to have a bad day and I'm going to have a good day, or contextually the same thing, but because I'm using different language, it actually means something different when I'm talking about my filters and stuff like that.
Yeah, people think it's just semantics, but it's not. It actually creates a different thought pattern for yourself.
Right.
That was, with my kids, that was one of the first things that I started experimenting with when I learned hypnosis, was just eliminating negative language. Because, I found out that I was telling my kids to make a mess when I said, don't make a mess.
And it's hard.
Yeah, it is. It took a while. Yeah. And, I've been doing this for 25 years now, and I still catch myself sometimes, but I always just stop and then I change the language and follow it up. It's not evil if you say it wrong, just follow it up with the right thing that you want to say.
Right.
But, it is such a big difference. And, so talk about, this is something a lot of people feel when they do affirmations. They do get that sense of, I'm lying.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that a little bit more, and how you get people across through that belief and start
most
using
of the time, if they don't believe the affirmation is true, I try to help them find the one exception to the rule. If they say, I'm not beautiful, if they can't believe that they're beautiful, and that's just an easy example.
Mm-hmm.
I try to help them think of one time in their life where they really thought they had it going on. And because they had that one moment, it means that it's true, even if it was only true for that one moment. And if they can believe it was true for that one moment, they use that to catapult the reticular activating system so that they can see more evidence and they can see that it is true even now and on a broader scale. So just trying to find that one thing that makes it truer. But for people who can't, say it till it is true. I just keep telling, practice. Just say it anyway. Say it anyway. I believe it's true. So say Aloha says it's true enough to make it true.
I love it. And, one of the things that I teach when it comes to perception is projection. That's in the field of psychology, projection is used as a word, but it's usually used as negative emotions that you're projecting on somebody else. In NLP, we use it. Everything is a projection from your unconscious mind. And so, one of the things that I always say is look for the beauty in other people. And then you'll begin to see more of the beauty in yourself.
Absolutely.
And look for the things that are not traditionally beautiful. This was a big thing that happened for me. Like I grew up not thinking that I was handsome at all. I actually thought that I was funny looking and kind of ugly. And that was my self-esteem that was eating at me from the inside. And, one of the things that I found is, like, if I looked at somebody who was like what you might call classically handsome, there was a comparison going on.
Right.
Well, I don't look like that person, so I'm not handsome. But when I started looking for things that are not classical, that are positive traits, as opposed to being like they're up here and I'm down here, everybody has something that's beautiful about them. Every single person. I don't care what they look like. And, just watch the movie Mask. You remember that movie from the 80s, Mask? The guy that has, it wasn't elephantitis, but he had the bone growth in his face. And it's like, there's something beautiful about that guy. And that was the whole reason that movie was a tearjerker, is because you realized it by the end of the movie. There's something beautiful in all of us. It just may not be that what is sometimes a phony, plasticky version of beauty.
Or even physical thing of beauty, because I try to help them find the beauty in themselves some kind of way. But like I said, a lot of the people that I deal with, they're so embedded into negativity that is difficult. So it becomes the work. But that's where the hypnosis and the NLP becomes critical in my work.
Yeah, I love it. I believe in the law of attraction. One version of the law of attraction, it's just one. It's not the right one necessarily, but one is the secret, which says ask, believe, and receive. And people will say to me, why isn't the law of attraction working for me? And it's step 2. right? You need to believe. You can't just ask for it and it's going to come. You need to believe that you deserve it. You need to believe it's coming in your life. And people go, how am I supposed to believe something like that? Well, that's where the unconscious mind comes in. And these tools like NLP and hypnotherapy are perfect for that. Where can people find you other than, of course, in the #1 best-selling book? Where can people find you so they can work with you?
I'm on Instagram at Aloha McGregor. I'm on Facebook at MindMender. My landing page on my website is www.MindyMindCounselingGroup. And you can get to my products there, and then you can get to my services from there as well.
I love it. Awesome. Congratulations, #1 best-selling author.
Thank you so much.
I love it. Let's check our stats compulsively. We don't need CBT for this compulsion. This is a good compulsion. Let's see where we are. We are at, nope, no update yet. All right, it's coming. I can feel it.
I believe it.
All right. Oh, we lost Aruna. She was there in the green room a second ago. Where did she go? All right. Hopefully she's reconnecting. All right. Well, thank you so much, Aloha. And look forward to seeing you on Monday. All right. Thanks. There she is. Hi, Aruna. How you doing?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you.
Good to see you. Let me bring up your chapter here.
Thank you.
Let's see. Where are we? Now we are right here. Chapter 9. Aruna wrote Chapter 9, Mindset, Movement, and Manifest. Yay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Transform Destiny. Thank you, Michael, for this opportunity. It is amazing. And I was trying to control my emotions, but it's amazing. Thank you to the entire team for making it possible, for making me, guiding me through this process when I had the ups and downs and I drew a blank, and you are like, just focus 15 minutes a day. So all that helped. Everybody should have a mentor like Michael, please. Yes, I would highly recommend.
Oh, I love it. So tell us about what got you into this. I know you went through your NLP trainings last year, right? And hypnotherapy and everything else. And then what caused you to get into all that and then write this chapter, Mindset, Movement, Manifest?
Yes. So I was introduced to NLP. It was by coincidence. And I met this friend at one of the expos, Body, Mind, and Spirit Expo. And we were talking about it. I guess the universe had plans. I didn't even plan to go the second day. And we started talking about, and she said, well, there is this local company, in US called Transform Destiny. And I'm like, okay, send me the information. And from there, it's turned out to be the best experience I've ever had. So nothing happens by coincidence, in my opinion. Universe, when you set your intention and you focus and your intention is good, no matter where people are in their life, if I can do it, you can do it. So yeah, I went through the training in February and I haven't looked back, and it's been a wonderful journey. And when you said, you're offering this opportunity for just few authors, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure whether I'm ready. Then I trusted my intuition. And from there, it's been great. And Transform Destiny also helps me to follow my intuition.
That's such an important thing. I love it. What got you into it? Like, I know you had a friend that told you to come, but what was your kind of driver for wanting to learn, NLP?
Okay, so my driver, I was really, really, really young, like at the age of 21, got married, and I was in an abusive, physically, mentally, emotionally abusive relationship for 27 years, and not 27 years, for 18 years. And the person, they treated me in a way where I really lost my identity as to who Aruna was. And I was hospitalized, stayed in the hospital for 27 days. That's what I was trying to say. Stayed in the hospital for 27 days with 3rd-degree burns to 45% of my body.
Wow.
That really changed the way I looked at myself. And I was looking, like you said, with Aloha, I was looking for other people's validation because I lost my identity. And after coming home, after the skin graft with no pain medication, and thanks to my parents, they suggested me not to take any pain medication. It was an interesting journey, to say the least. But it made me so stronger, and it made me realize who the heck I am inside. And I am a medical massage therapist since 2008, so about 14 years. And when I came to know about Transform Destiny, I was thinking about doing that hypnotherapy and neuro-linguistic programming, to be honest with you, but it didn't align. So when my intention, and I was following my intuition without listening to, or ignoring, I should say, change the language, ignoring what other people were telling me with discouraging words, I trusted my intuition. I believed in myself. So who is listening? If you guys have somebody around you, first of all, surround yourself with people who believe in you, who nudges you gently to push you forward, and who believe in you and who support you. If they don't, if they're giving you discouraging words, use it as a motivation. Do not let those discouraging words to keep you down. If you believe in yourself, no matter whether anybody believes in you or not, if you believe in yourself, you move forward with your focused intention. Yes. So that, I mean, when I got introduced to Transform Destiny, I was like, yes. And thank you, Michael. I can't thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough. I keep listening to all your videos and all your lessons, and your voice. Like I said, after talking to you, when I was feeling like I don't know what to write, before I came up with this chapter in this book, and after your words, I sat down for 2 hours from 8:45 to 11:45. I finished 8 pages, and I was like, whoa, Aruna. So that, those people, like mentors like you, everyone needs them. Everyone needs them. So if you do not have the right mentor, please get the right mentor. That's important, who support you, who nudges you, who knows your potential, what you can achieve and accomplish. And that's important. So yes, I am truly grateful. So be grateful. That's another thing I would encourage, because when we focus on, oh my God, I don't have this. Oh my God, I don't have people around me to support. Oh my God, I don't have a mentor. Then you are attracting those things into your life. The people who are not supporting you, the people who are not mentoring you, those are the people who attract. Because I did. Yeah. I was living with the narcissist, and I was attracting the narcissist, and I learned how to, attract the right people into my life through the NLP. So that's important.
It's so funny. Kayla and I talk about this all the time. Anytime you watch an award show, right? The person gets their award, they stand to the microphone, they begin sobbing, and they go, "This is for all the people who said I couldn't do it." And Kayla and I talk about this all the time. Like, why would you surround yourself with people who say you can't do it?
Yeah.
Be intentional about who you allow in your life, right? Because it is important. I don't allow people in my life who don't want to see me successful and believe that I can be successful, because that is such an important component of it. You have to be at cause for the relationships that you have, and either correct the ones that are not like that, or seek new ones. And when Kayla and I got together 11 years ago, we just had our 11-year anniversary a couple days ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. One of the conversations we had, because Kayla published her book in that year, that was 2012. And at that time we'd been dating for 6 months, I think. And she was still in that mindset of your friends and my friends. And what happened when she published her book was that almost none of her friends bought a copy.
Wow.
And a few of her friends even sabotaged. One of her toxic friends left a really, really negative anonymous review on Amazon. We know who it is. But like almost none of her friends showed up. Whereas all of, quote, my friends, who she barely knew, some of them only for a few months, were buying boxes of books to support her because they wanted to see her succeed and become a best-selling author. And that was the point where I said to her, like, can we stop calling them my friends now? They're your friends too. And we had a talk about being super intentional about who we allow in our lives. And it became one of our highest values, was to put ourselves in the environments where people are who we want to be around. And we want to be around people we call plus relationships, right? There's no jealousy. There's no, she had friends that when she started writing her book, they're like, what are you trying to be like Michael? Like just, we call it the crabs in the bucket, right? Trying to pull her back into the bucket with them. And it's so important, to surround yourself with the people who they want to see you successful. It brings them joy for you to have success. And that's rare. I wish there were more people in the world who were in that mode. A lot of people have to release a lot of things before they get to that point. I had to. But there are enough people in the world that you can surround yourself with that, and it becomes infectious.
Yes, that is true. And when you said, no, be intentional about who you surround yourself with, it's so good to have healthy boundaries.
Yes.
So good to have healthy boundaries, because when you have healthy boundaries, you are teaching other people around you how you need to be treated and what you will put up with and what you do not. So it is so important to have those healthy boundaries and be intentional about who you're surrounding yourself with. And like you said, when people are feeling jealous, you will feel that energy. That is where your intuition comes in handy. Don't second guess and don't doubt yourself. Because am I looking at it from a different perspective? No, your body will not lie to you.
Yeah. And don't be angry with them for the jealousy. I'm never angry at somebody who's jealous. What I realize is that's just their pain that they're going through. They're looking at a perceived gap and feeling a negative emotion about it. I don't think they're bad people. And they're not people. I'm not even saying necessarily cut them out of your life. Just choose who you invest time with,
Yeah.
By the way,
reduce
Susan
the amount of time.
Go Aruna.
I'm sorry?
Susan Gretecki just posted, go Aruna. She commented.
Oh, thank you, Susan.
Shout out from Susan. I love it. So one of the things I love that you talk about is two things. Number one, that you should celebrate your progress. And number two, that it's okay to feel your emotions. So talk about that briefly.
Thank you for asking me to elaborate on that, because we don't often celebrate our progress. And I've heard other people talk about it too. When we go through challenging times, we dwell on it. And then it takes a lot. Whoever is listening to this, everybody has gone through challenges. And we all know how much it takes to climb that ladder and to reach wherever you want to reach. When you reach there, please take your time to celebrate yourself, the steps you have taken to accomplish those. You deserve it.
Yeah.
Just as much, you have spent so much time in dwelling on, oh my God, I went through all this. So celebrate those steps, even if it is a tiny step. And it's so important. And pat yourself on your back. I do that all the time.
Yeah. The tiny steps are important. People always want to do something huge, but then we get overwhelmed and we don't take action.
Yeah.
So the tiny steps are sometimes more important, because lots of tiny steps lead up to a big step.
Yes. And when you said feeling the emotions, when we feel overwhelmed, like you mentioned, or when we feel discouraged, or when we feel whatever feelings that is, when we feel down and depressed and whatnot, it is important to feel those emotions instead of like, okay, I don't want to feel it. And instead of suppressing it, please, whether you give yourself permission, whether it is 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, give yourself permission. That is one of the messages my brother gave when I was going through challenging times. Feel the emotions at least for a few minutes. You set the time. After that, shrug your shoulders, dust it off, get up and go. Do it. You got this.
Yeah.
Everybody got this. If I can do it, from the person who came from India and literally built myself up, and coming through the adversity and taking care of my mental health and my physical health and my family, building my business up, whoever is listening, you got this.
Yep.
Be positively awesome.
I love it. So other than the chapter in the book, where can people find you if they want to work with you?
So I am aligned with working with the women who are entrepreneurs and who are moms and who run their own business, but they feel guilty about not spending enough quality time with their loved ones. I am there to guide you. If you choose me to guide you, yes, I'm there to guide you. And I am on Instagram, Aruna_Ramamurthy, and on Facebook as Empowerment Coach. So yeah, if you're aligned with me, and I'm pretty selective as who I want to include in my, surroundings. But if you're aligned with my energy and my help, I am happy to guide you through your process. And there is no judgment at all. So I tell all my clients, I don't judge at all. We all
Sean
have
Yang just
unique
commented,
journeys.
and said, "I'm so very honored to walk alongside Aruna, the NLP path."
Oh, who said that?
Sean Young.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jan.
All right, let's check our stats. Do a hard refresh here, and where are we at? Still the same.
Okay. Well, I'm
getting
so
there.
honored. I'm so honored, Michael. Thank you for this opportunity. Yes.
Love it. You're welcome, and thank you for being a part of it.
Thank you.
All right. Next we have Kirsten. Hi, Kirsten. How you doing?
It's a day of first, Michael. It's a first day of being an author. It's the first day of a live stream. So
I love it.
yeah,
It's your first live stream ever.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw, but we're number 10 in new releases under motivational self-help.
Oh, I love it.
Yes. Yes.
Yay.
Yay.
In the hot new releases?
That's right. If my eyes aren't deceiving me, yes.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yay.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to see you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll have to get a screenshot of that. So your chapter is chapter 7, Dare to be True. I love the title. And sometimes it does feel daring to be true to ourselves. I know for most of my life it did. And I talk about this when I got together with Kayla. One of the biggest differences between the relationship I have with her and every other person I ever dated was I truly feel like I am myself, true to myself with her. I never felt like I have to act any different. And that's something that has rippled, throughout all areas of my life in daring to be true. So tell us what got you into this and wanting to write this chapter.
Oh my gosh. So many reasons, not the least of which was the opportunity to work with you and to learn from you. So thank you for that. And to be surrounded by so many experts in the field, people not only who are tremendous coaches and thought leaders, but also people who had published books before. So, it was a very easy yes, but I will tell you, the compelling moment was when I saw the title. And there are many people in my past who would probably be completely shocked to see that I'm involved in something about positive thinking, because I was not the poster child for positive thinking. I was actually the opposite. And the struggle that I had was that as much as when I reached a point and sort of became much more aware of what my challenges were and why I was so stuck in my stories and my way of thinking, very well-intentioned people would say, well, just think differently, right? That's no big deal. That's going to pass. Everything's going to be fine. Glasses, half full. We know all those sayings. And again, very well-intentioned people, but there was nobody back in those days really to be able to show me how.
Yeah.
And that's what really resonated with me, right? It's more than just, our stories and our past and being able to, outline the tools, but to really relate to people on a personal level and say, you know what, we get it. We know what it's like. And here are the things that you can do to shift. And by the way, if this doesn't work, try over here. So that was definitely it for me.
I love that phrase, right? And by the way, if this doesn't work, right? This is one of the things we talked about when we decided to write this book was, of course, we want to make it a bestseller. We want to get the word out about ourselves. We want to get the word out about NLP. And one of the questions was, well, what if it doesn't become a bestseller? It's like, then we'll just try again.
That's right.
Right. And I could see, we were on a Zoom call. I could see everybody's faces at the time. And when I said that, everyone was just like, oh, great. Like, we don't make bestseller. It's not the end of the world. We're not failures. We'll just do it again. And then we'll make sure we do it better the next time. And that's, I think I talked about this before. It's one of my keys to success, just being willing to take action. I didn't know how I was going to pull off today. When 3 days ago, I said, hey, let's do a virtual book tour. I learned how to do this from my friend, Alex Mendosian. He gave a presentation on doing virtual book tours. He's done this 100 times. And I was like, hey, that sounds great. I put it out to the group. Do you guys all want to jump on live on Saturday? And I was like, I had no clue how we were going to do this. None whatsoever. I knew I could open up Zoom and stream to like one Facebook page, but to, be live on all these platforms. Right now we're live on three different Facebook pages, LinkedIn,
Oh my gosh.
YouTube, Twitter.
No, don't tell this to somebody who's new to live stream, Michael.
Yeah, so you're not just live streaming your first time, you're live streaming your first 7 times right now, all at once.
Right. That's right. But you bring up a really interesting point too, when we talk about what kind of brought me into this project. It's really rare, and a lot of my experience has been in corporate, to find so many people who not only are experts in their field, but who are coming from the same heart-centered place.
Yes.
So when you talk about Alex and that willingness to share, everybody has been tremendous. And I know that if they're bringing that into our group, I mean, who can imagine what they're going to bring out to all of the readers? It's just been incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I'm not placating when I say every chapter in this book is great. It's, anytime we do a collaboration, there's always that, okay, we'll see what, I did a collaboration book. I won't say which one or when, but I did one that was like half the chapters are kind of mediocre and we just don't even talk about it. It's sort of swept under the rug. But this is like, I will be promoting this book for the rest of my life.
It's amazing.
It's and your story, I don't want to spoil your story, but your story is so inspiring because you've been through a lot, like most of us have, you've been through a lot more than most, but we've all been through these things and talk a little bit about that. Maybe not your story necessarily, but kind of the meta part of it about your journey and how where was the turning point for you where you went from having a traumatic life to the life that you have now?
Yeah. So thank you for that. It, when I think back on my life, and I'm going to skip over the more macro trauma, when we think about sexual and physical abuse, which unfortunately so many of us have been through. I look at my life just in terms of chunks. So the first part was about survival. And I'll say that probably went to about the age of 22.
Yeah.
At which point, when I got out of college, there was a pivot point, and it became quite self-destructive, right? And I remember years, about 28, 29, where I was convinced I was not going to see 30. I saw 30, I saw 31, 2, 3. And about that time, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be here for a little while. So I'm just going to have to settle in. But it wasn't until my son was born, and I was 39 at the time, where that was my real pivot point. And what had happened up to that point was honestly a lot of disassociation, a lot of denial, a lot of, oh, I've dealt with it. It's okay. That was a long time ago. And it made me, when we think about the layers of emotion, when we think about anger, I mean, there was rage, there was resentment, there were just horrible things. But it wasn't me that motivated me. It was my son. And I remember when he was laying on my chest, after a 39-hour delivery, I looked at him, and the realization came to me. I think one of the first conscious awarenesses that I had was that I wanted him to have a different kind of life, but one where he had confidence, one where he believed in himself, one where he was going to actually have dreams as a child, which I didn't have, right? It was all about getting through the next day. And there was this moment when I was like, how the hell am I going to teach him that? Right? I don't really believe that about myself. Consciously, I did. But in my soul, I was still struggling with self-worth issues, self-doubt. I didn't know enough. Every mistake I made just brought shame. And that's where it started. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a similar aspect to my story as well. My son came into my life when I was 20 years old, and I had literally nothing positive in my life. I had no drivers. I had no motivation. Working a graveyard shift, making $6 an hour, just making enough money to go out drinking with my friends, basically, and have no responsibilities. And then, my son was a pleasant surprise. But really the first thing that gave me any motivation in my life, and that's when I really became serious about fixing my mindset, about getting a real career, and eventually, focusing on starting my own business and really modeling that life. It's such a huge inspiration. I love it. So, one of the things that I know you talked about in the book, as I get my notes out here, there was something that I wanted to bring up with you, was choosing not to let trauma dictate the results. I think that's, this is something Kayla and I talk about this quite a bit. We were just in a very high level kind of a mastermind program, $35,000 a year. And I was blown away. Some very, very successful. I mean, there was an owner of a baseball team in this mastermind. That's how successful some of these people were. Well, like light years ahead of where we are right now, in terms of the financial success, at least. But there was this obsession in the group about trauma, and everybody talking about the trauma that they had.
Mhm.
And on the one hand, I think it's important to recognize where we've had trauma. On the other hand, I think that we're all, especially right now, this is like just this last 10 years, we're all over focusing on the trauma.
Mhm.
Because if all you do is talk about my life was so traumatic, my life is so traumatic, my life is so traumatic, trauma, the definition of trauma is to be emotionally injured,
Mhm.
right? And so one of my questions for the leader of the group is, at what point do you fix it, solve it, and then not call it trauma anymore? Because the leader of the group claims to have done all this personal work and have gotten over it all. And it's like, well, if you've gotten over it all, you're not injured anymore. It's not called trauma. So I'm in the very beginning process of writing a book called From Trauma to Triumph,
Oh, I
because
love it.
I think people need to redefine the word once you move through it.
Yeah.
And speak to that a little bit, how that's been for you.
Well, I totally agree with everything you said. And like anything else, it becomes part of our identity, right? We can see ourselves as, the survivor of trauma, the victim of this, the person who's accomplished this, and getting anything out of that level of identity is really, really difficult. Um, I, I honestly think the process of removing it is really no different than removing anything else that you no longer want to be associated with, and just the vibrational energy of the word. And I personally, I don't like the word,
Yeah.
because I don't think it speaks to really what happens, but it automatically is going to lower you.
Yeah.
So for me, it goes back to just basic coaching concepts, which is, where do you want to be? Because if you want to be successful and you want to be happy and you want to be fulfilled, what kind of person achieves that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's not going to be that mindset. When I explain trauma to people, especially micro trauma, which is what I think a lot of people are starting to pay more attention to at
Yeah.
this point, it really it's nothing more than an event or experience that just creates that emotional shock,
Yeah.
right? And I dive into this a bit in my chapter, and that shock doesn't go through. That shock gets stuck, right, energetically.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of saying, this is something that happened, that I experienced, but it doesn't define me, right?
Yes.
This is how I choose to define myself, as a successful, happy, fulfilled person. Put your laser focus on that. That's the island. That's where you will sail your ship, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
I love what you said too. I've never heard the phrase before, but micro trauma, because I feel like there are things that are people are taking things that they're just unhappy with from their past and then labeling it trauma. And we all know what labels do in NLP. They give things meaning. And sometimes I find that people are over labeling, just like how we overdiagnose. People will say, oh, I like my pencils in order, so I have OCD. No, you don't. You just like things in a neat order. That's not a compulsion. It's not a obsession. And it's certainly not a diagnosis, And I feel like in a way people are sort of self-diagnosing trauma, sometimes micro traumas, but by using the label trauma, I think they're making something more extreme than it is, and then living into that extremeness.
I do think, I agree. And I think that there's also a part of a process, which is, it was hard for me personally to even associate myself at any point as trauma, right? But when I did, it got stuck, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If it, like any emotion, any part of your identity, let it sort of ride that process, and it's there to get you to that next step.
Yeah.
But be willing to release it, and it's willingness, because what's on the others, this is a perfect example for me with a fourth grade teacher who told me I couldn't write.
Yeah.
Right. Um, so I know it can be done. And I'm just really excited to see how this book helps people move in that direction.
I love it. So other than in the book, hopefully everybody's getting their copy today. Where can people find you if they want to work with you?
I keep it really simple. I have a website. It's kirstenbless.com. And that's it. Right now, I'm thinking about social media a little bit more. I do this in conjunction with my full-time career. And so, I keep it appropriately sized. Yeah.
I love it. And one of the things I will say to you, I'm a firm believer of this now, is hire people to do the social media for you.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that, I post on Facebook on my personal wall. I don't do a lot of marketing. I've done advertising, but to have a team now who actually is just making my content from everything that I recorded and putting it out there for me is so great. It's so much more than I would have done myself. I wish I'd have done it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We would have helped a lot more people. We already helped a lot of people. We would have helped a lot more people if I just had the team making all the social media stuff for me 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's incredible. For anybody who's an entrepreneur, I did that with ClickFunnels. It just, you've got to know where you want to spend your energy and what's bringing you joy. And the less time that we're spending on those things, the more time we actually have to work one-on-one with people.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kirsten. Congratulations on being a #1 best-selling author.
Thank you for all the support. It's been an incredible journey, Michael. I'm truly grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have #1 best-selling author, Dr. Jeffrey J. Rodman. And
hello, sir. How are you?
End Every Addiction, Chapter 4. I love it.
Yes.
This is, this is sort of one of those things where I think there's both dynamics of the word. There are some people who overuse the word addiction, and there's some people who don't realize that some of the things they have are addictions. And I love that you address that in the book, that, a lot of us have behaviors that we don't know. We don't call them addictions, but they have the same qualities and they have the same downsides. So tell us, you're a professional psychotherapist, right? You've been doing this for a while. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into all this.
Yeah, I'm a licensed professional counselor and a licensed substance abuse treatment practitioner. I've been doing this for about 30 years now, as a therapist in one way or another. And I do specialize in working with addictions, but I also work with a lot of other mental health issues as far as depression, anxiety, things like that.
Mm-hmm. I love it. What was it that drew you into becoming a licensed professional psychotherapist and working with this kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I grew up in a household that had a lot of addiction in it. I got wrapped up into my own addictions from a very, very young age. Started drinking at age 5, started smoking marijuana by the time I was like age 11. By the time I was 16, I was pretty hopelessly addicted. I'd already dropped out of school, stopped going to school when I was in 8th grade, at about 14, and was making a pretty good mess of my life. And then by the time I was 20 years old, I had gotten sober and stopped all that and started on a different trajectory. One of the things that I talk about in my chapter is finding a belief that you can change. I think a lot of people get stuck in addiction because they feel like they are kind of destined to be addicts. They have a family history of addiction. And once they start down that rabbit trail, they feel like there's just no turning back for them, and that's just their destiny. I had a dear friend of mine who really believed in me when I started, when I did get sober, and really thought that I could do a lot more with my life. And that's what sent me back to college and eventually getting my associate's degree, then my bachelor's degree, then my master's degree, then my PhD. So it really changed my life, just having someone who saw something in me more than I could possibly see in myself.
Yeah, I love it. Now, not to bash any kind of way of overcoming addictions. There are many things out there like 12-step programs and spiritual programs and things like that. What sets apart your method basically fit in 9 pages. Obviously, there's a lot more to expand on. You're going to publish a full book on this year. But what is the difference between those other methods which do work for some people and don't work for others, and what you teach?
Yeah, and I don't think there is a one size fits all, and I think a lot of the other approaches that are out there have a lot of value to them.
Yeah.
One of the things that really drew me to neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy is that I felt like my approach to working with people was always a little bit different than all my other peers in the mental health and addiction community.
Mhm.
And when I found NLP, I was like, oh, this is what I've been doing.
Yeah.
I've been helping people shift their thinking and not associate to their trauma, not associate to their addiction, and to see themselves in a different way.
Mhm.
And as I did that, they were able to overcome their addiction. So part of it is disassociating from their addiction. Most of the addiction treatment community believes you are, once you're an addict, you're always an addict.
Yep.
And you never really overcome that. You manage it. You're always in recovery.
Yeah.
I do believe that we recover from
Mhm.
addictions, and we can end them. We can end them and put them behind us. And really, we can't start to self-actualize. We can't start to become the greatest version of ourselves until we have ended all of those different addictions.
I love it. Yeah. This, one of the issues that I had for many years with the 12-step programs was the whole identity. In NLP, we talk about identity being the most powerful
Mhm.
function of the mind. And, one of my friends and a training graduate of mine, Jack Grisham, he used to be still is the lead singer of a band called the Sounds of Liberty, which is one of the foundational punk bands. Like all the punk bands today, they all like look back to these guys and say they were an inspiration. And he grew up his whole life literally taking drugs before going on stage and then chugging bottles of alcohol. He said he would black out halfway through the show, wake up in jail the next morning. Happened over and over and over again. And finally one day he got sober. And so I was having lunch with him and we were kind of having a discussion about 12-step. And I said, the issue that I have with 12-step is that statement. My name is blank and I am an addict. And he's like slammed his hand on the table and he goes, no. He goes, it doesn't say that. And he reached in his backpack, pulled out the big book, opened up the very first page. And he said, read that line right there. And the very first line from, I don't remember the names of the two guys that wrote it. The very first paragraph, it said, the first thing we had to do was admit that we were addicts.
Right. Past tense.
And he said, it never says you have to admit you are an addict. He said, that is the people who have interpreted it that way and keep it that way in the 12-step programs. But that's not, in his view, that wasn't the way that it was. And he said, he considered himself in recovery, but he didn't consider himself an addict anymore. And I think that's something you speak to in the book is speaking to that highest level of identity.
Yeah, and in the full-length book that will be coming out later this year, I have a whole chapter on 12-step programs and some of the cautions about 12-step programs, because one of the types of addictions that I talk about are people addictions. People become addicted to people, either through codependent relationships, through violent relationships, or through 12-step programs, through groups and training and things like that. Those can be healthy when you're you find a healthy group of people that you go to the gym with, or you walk with, or that are encouraging and supporting each other. But I've seen people in AA meetings or NA meetings that they've been sober for 30 years and they're still going to meetings 6-7 days a week. Their life looks pretty much like it did 30 years ago.
Just one step away from it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it would mean that they were self-actualized as close as they could be to self-actualize while they were still drunk every day, which seems pretty hard to believe.
Yeah.
So I think you need to disassociate from that. Interesting thing about the 12-step programs is that 12-step programs were meant to be completed in 90 days. A lot of people don't think that. They think you're supposed to do, a step a year or a step every couple of years or things like that. You're supposed to do a step a week. The common phrase in 12-step programs is to do a 90 and 90 meetings in 90 days.
Wow.
During that 90 days, you're supposed to get sober. That's the first week. And then you're supposed to do a step a week for the rest of, for the next 12 weeks. That
And
gets
evolve.
you to the end of the 90 and 90.
Yeah.
And then you're done. You're essentially recovered at that point. And then your role at that point is to continue to seek your higher power, to develop more spiritually and be more spiritually aware, and help others to find that same freedom that you have.
I do feel like for a lot of people, the programs that are out there it's just replacement addiction, addiction replacement. The meetings become the new addiction. And,
Absolutely.
yeah, like you said, becoming addicted to people. That was me. I was codependent. Years ago, I did a program called Al-Anon, which is, people think that's Alcoholics Anonymous. It's not. It's a group for people who are related to alcoholics, was how it started. And codependent. And I was codependent in a lot of my relationships toxically. And I went through that program, and it was profound for me. It really taught me about boundaries and healthy relationships. And your stuff just is taking that to the next level with all the NLP behind it and everything else. I love it.
Yeah. It's about taking responsibility for yourself, taking responsibility for the behaviors that had gotten you stuck in that addiction. You were just talking to Kirsten about trauma. There's a very, very strong association between trauma and addiction. Yes. And people get associated to that trauma, and then they get associated to an addiction that helps to relieve that trauma. They get stuck in this mode of safety and security, where they are in a self-preservation mode. And when you are stuck in self-preservation, when you're stuck in a mode of only trying to protect yourself, you can't advance. You can't advance to love and belonging, of having relationships with other people. You can't advance to developing self-esteem, self-concept, self-worth. And you certainly can't advance up to, self-actualization, where you actually get to that higher version of yourself.
Yeah. That's profound. I think some people just get stuck in the survival mode, as we were just talking about a few minutes ago, of just getting through the day. And for some people, their tank is so empty. I think that's the only thing they know how to turn to. And again, it doesn't have to be alcohol or drugs. It's the dopamine machine, right? How many of us I struggle with this, and I struggle with the, and perhaps it's a limiting belief, but the idea that, well, I need to be on social media to promote what I do so that I can help more people. But then also, how do I not be on social media so much that it's destructive? And that's for sure. That one of the things they're looking at doing is taking away like the likes on videos and posts, because people become so addicted to posting content. And then why aren't people liking it? If they don't like it enough, I'm not good enough. And if they do like it enough, I'm this. And that's really powerful. How often, when you deal with clients, how often are you dealing with intangible addictions like that? Are there common, intangible addictions?
This is what I do full time. This is what I do for a living full time. Right now, I am working with people with sex addiction, with pornography addiction, shopping addiction, computer or electronics addiction, substance addictions, or alcohol, drugs, marijuana. It's pretty common, and often food addiction also is pretty common. And often people switch addictions, right? So they recover from alcohol addiction, and then they start using pornography, or they start using sex as a drug, hooking up with women indiscriminately in meetings and things like that. So
it's not the thing itself. The root of it is usually escapism, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. So other than in the #1 best-selling book, Becoming Positively Awesome, where can people find you if they want to work with you?
I am on most social media. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I have a website. My website is hereforyou.com, HERE-4-YOU.com. Or you can just Google my name, and my name will always come up as the first option under Google.
I love it. And then tell us about, one of the things I love from this, I always talk about a book is not something you sell. A book is a platform, right? And you have wisely decided to use this book and this launch as a platform. So tell us about your upcoming project.
Yeah, so my upcoming book is by the same title, End Every Addiction. The subtitle is Quickly and Easily Without Withdrawal or Relapse. So the most common treatment modality right now is medication-assisted treatment, which I think has been largely destructive to a lot of people. It is a classical switching of addictions, and people get stuck in that new addiction. There's a place for it, but it's, again, just like AA is supposed to be used as a short-term recovery approach. Medication-assisted treatment is supposed to be used as a short-term recovery approach. 2 to 4 weeks was what it was designed to be used as, and now people stay on it for years and years and years, and it just keeps them from being able to self-actualize. It keeps them from being able to grow as a human being because they are constantly under the influence.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey. Let's compulsively check our stats here. We are now, look at this, we're number 10 in new releases in motivational self-help. So we're climbing in the new releases.
Wow.
And let's refresh our stats here on the page. See if we got an update yet. No update yet. Still number 80 in bestsellers of motivational self-help. Hopefully by the end of the broadcast, we'll be number 1 in that category.
Yes.
I love it. All right. Thanks, Jeffrey. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And next we have Scott Butler. Hey, Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you?
Great. Scott is from near my stomping grounds.
Yep.
He's probably less than 10 minutes from where I grew up in Baldwin, Missouri, and down the street from Eureka, where I did some growing up as well.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
I grew up hearing all the stories about the place where you grew up.
Yeah. Yep. Let me find your chapter. So here's your chapter. Chapter number 2, the only prison is the one between your ears. I've said this a few times. That's a prison that I was definitely trapped in for a large portion of my life. Mm-hmm. Didn't realize it was a prison of my own design. But so powerful, so true. So talk to me about, I know you're a chiropractor and in a natural functional medicine. So talk about how, you got into all this and how these worlds merged together of, working with the body and now working with the mind.
Well, for the last 25 years, I've been working with a couple of different individuals, in essence, trying to create a better version of myself, get through some of my own self-imposed challenges and obstacles. And I got to a certain point where I was still having some challenges that I didn't understand. And come to realize that I'd had some expectations of what my life should have been, as far as, say, family and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I reached a relatively dark place for me. And one of the phrases I used to use was, I don't care if I live or die. I didn't want to, but I just didn't have a preference because I was just going from day to day. And it's because I had set an expectation in my life that I hadn't achieved, and it was weighing down on me. And once I got into the NLP world and got introduced to Transform Destiny, I did the first class CYL, Create Your Life, and there was a shift right away. And I realized this was a path that I had been looking for a while and had been picking away at the edges and taking different pathways, you mentioned The Secret earlier today. I did some work with that. Mm-hmm. And when I got into this world, the NLP world, I realized that there was more that I could shift inside myself that I realized I had the power to shift. And now in my career, I've always been that individual that could see within a patient that there was a hindrance. There was something interfering with work we were doing together. And it was easy enough for me to sit down and have a few conversations with them, help them get to the point where they realized it. And very often when they would realize one of the things that was holding them back in a mental or an emotional way, physically they would improve. And that always made me look good because they thought I fixed them.
Right. Yeah.
And it didn't matter how many times I told them that I'm just a guide. I'm just your support system. It's the work you do that's, whether it be the physical, the mental, the emotional, energetic, that's really going to make the changes in your life. Mm-hmm. And in our world, people are having troubles with that. They think that all the help they get is from the outside versus the inside.
Right.
So this path was originally for me to make changes for myself, and I had no real intention of getting into coaching specifically because I'd already been doing a version of it, and now it's just a natural move.
I love it. That's very similar to my story. Of course, I really got into this field because I was unhappy with myself. Mm-hmm. There were so many things about myself I didn't like. I was shy. I didn't think I was good looking. I was, wasn't perceived myself as successful, which is funny because even as I started to gain success, at least financial success as a programmer, I still didn't think well of myself. I still didn't think I was really truly successful. I felt like a fraud, that whole imposter syndrome thing. And when NLP came along, it was just like, well, now I can fix myself.
Exactly.
It was such an appealing thing to me. And I'm still working on myself 25 years later, It's always a work in progress.
That was an issue for me. I had created an entire life for what I thought was the expected outcome. The whole family, picket fence, the American dream that everybody thinks exists, or the version of it, right? And so I created what most of my profession would consider to be a very successful practice in life, and yet it still lacked. And it's because I lacked, right? And hence the work they're doing on myself and making shifts. And I have to admit, I'm surprised how much more work I'm doing on myself every day, even at 47, realizing that this isn't a end of a race. This isn't a sprint. This is the long-term marathon that just there's an end date, but it's usually the end date.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. For me, it's always about it's being grateful for where I am and striving for more, striving for better, Is that moonshine?
I grew up drinking out of those little mason jars.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I love it.
Store, and now it's just an old throwback to my childhood.
So Susan Gratecki just commented. She said, Dr. Scott introduced me to NLP, forever grateful. I love it.
She's
Thank
amazing.
you for introducing her. So talk to me about how now you integrate this into your practice and how you help other people, because I'm a firm believer of a mind-body connection. I've studied all of Dr. Sarno's work and his protege, Dr. Steve Ozanich, and studied, Dr. Hammer and, all of these things. I personally think that emotions play a bigger part in health than almost anything else, including chemicals and other stuff like that. And I think that's your take as well. And so you're using these tools a lot in what you do with your clients. So talk about that.
This is a new transition for me. And it's interesting because when I first got into the functional medicine side, there was a lot of people that didn't quite understand what I was doing because I was changing and they didn't want change or understand the change.
Oh, yeah.
So the practice had a big shift in patients because they thought, well, you're a chiropractor. Why are you telling me that vitamin C is going to do this? Or, whatever it may be, I need to do this, I need to do that as far as my dietary or nutrition. And then when I made this additional shift to this, we had another shift in the patient base. And this time it was a little different. Now, when the patients show up, it's almost as if it's an attracted version versus a repulsed version, right? Because when I started making the shifts in myself in the practice, it kind of shook loose the people that didn't quite click with the energy and the vibe that we were doing here. And now as I'm moving that, you can say the vibe forward, up, or just shifting, however you want to say it, that fits me, I'm seeing a different kind of attraction, different kind of people are coming to me that are looking for more than just, hey, make this feel better, or hey, make my stomach quit hurting. They're wanting an actual shift to create something more long-term and more substantial for themselves.
It sounds like a shift from away motivation to toward motivation.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And that's actually been a lot of fun. Part of the book, the reason that part of where my chapter ended up and some of the things I said to my patients has really been an extension of my path and my journey. And so it's really interesting to kind of see who I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, come into my practice.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be able to know, okay, I understand part of that. I can't understand every piece of your path, but I can understand enough that I can connect with you and give you some tools that you can use yourself.
Yeah.
So what I've done is now I'm expanding the practice into a membership practice, as well as base chiropractic with expansion into other different therapies, nutrition, and then also the coaching and hypnosis. And people who do this are going to have more access to it. And then along with this, I expect to be doing a few different local meetings, a few local library experiences, and kind of expanding what people know about my practice. So that's really how it's going to be working. And people are going to come to me and say, hey, I've got this problem. And they may think that all they need is adjustment, when really what they need is to address their diet or address their energy or address their emotional triggers or anchors. And so what I'm doing is I'm giving people that full book opportunity without them realizing that's what they're getting.
I love it. And I love what you said too about, you're attracting different people. This is something that we teach at the Ethical Marketing Academy, which is, once you get specific on who you want to help, not only do you attract more clients, people are always afraid of that, right? They're like, well, if I niche, if I pick an avatar, I'm going to have fewer clients than I have now, but it's not true. You actually figure out who you want to work with. You figure out who your dream client is, right? And then it's like a magnet. I don't know what it is. Glenn Depke talks about this. He's one of our instructors at the Ethical Marketing Academy now. When we did this in his business and we figured out who his ideal client was, which is a woman named Linda, before he even changed his marketing or anything, he didn't change any of the writing on his website or ads or anything else. Suddenly the next week, he's like, I got 4 new Lindas this week, and, we have a few chapters on, manifestation and being in alignment. I think that's a big part of it. And you shifting yourself is also going to attract different people. And, I'm sure you know this, but you're one of our coaching clients. And, we get reports from Chris and Sheila, our coaches. And one of the things that I hear consistently is just how much you grow and how much you've grown through, your time working on yourself. And it's just going to, like a magnet, it's going to attract those new people to you.
And even with all that growth, there's still some of that old stuff in your mind going, well, I should be here. No, wait, hold on. Where was I? Where am I? And where do I want to go? And so I even catch myself becoming frustrated. Well, shouldn't I? Oh, wait, I can't be that way. Or rather than I can't be that way. I need to be grateful for where I am. Otherwise, I can't help other people. Yeah. And I can't continue to grow. So I found that with the coaching I received from you guys, I've really realized that there's a lot of things that I'm still working on in that area as well. And it's great
I love that you bring that up. That's something I talk about all the time. Like, when it comes to health and weight loss, one of the things I've always said is you cannot hate fat off your body, right? When people get overweight, they hate their bodies and then they want their body to do what they tell it to do. Not gonna. You're projecting hate into your body. And the same thing is true, when it comes to not just your physical body, but, any success that you have. And I think, one of the things for me has been, recognizing the difference between where I want to be and, like you said, where you were in the step that you're on right now. Take that time to stop at the step you're at and recognize it and celebrate it. People go, well, wait a minute. How can if I just love my body, no matter what shape it's in, aren't I going to stay in that shape? I have to hate it in order to change it. And I go, well, you don't have to hate your 4-year-old in order for them to be a 5-year-old. You love your 4-year-old into a 5-year-old. You nurture it that way. And I think, when it comes to emotions and the body and everything else, that's so powerful.
And sadly, if you don't have that for yourself, you can't give it to others. Now, I've had a couple of conversations where some people disagree with me on this, but I think if you're constantly hating something about yourself, that's going to perpetuate out towards others, whether you mean for it or not. And it may be underlying, you may not be outward, maybe extroverted, but there is going to be that underlying thread in your interactions. And so liking yourself, loving yourself, those are critical for you to be able to do that for others.
I love it.
Being in healthcare. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Being in healthcare, so many of us get into this world because we want to serve others. We think that that's our only purpose in life, right? You've talked about this in the past. So many of us get into this not because we want to improve ourselves or have a good life. We think we're supposed to live a life of servitude. And whether we call it that or not, that's really what it breaks down to. And so being able to shift that mindset so that we can do it for more toward motivators, like you were talking about, is going to do more for our clients and our patients, big time.
And I love one of the things you talk about in your chapter. You talk about asking powerful questions instead of making trite statements. When we say things like "I should be better" or "look on the bright side" or things like that, those statements, if you're not in the right state for them, those statements, like you said, they kind of piss you off. Right? When people give you those trite, like, look on the bright side, or it's only going up from here, or whatever, those positive things. But, I love one of the influence principles we talk about is that a question is always more powerful than a statement. Any statement that you make, a person can reject. But if you ask a question, they have to contemplate it. And what you've done is turn that around on yourself to not just make statements to yourself, but to ask questions instead. I think that's a great part of your chapter. You even give a table where you go, instead of saying this, ask this. It's so great. It's really practical.
Once I've always done a little bit of that, but I still had that urge, that behavior to tell people what to do. I think
Yeah.
it comes first from how I grew up and who I was as a human being, but then also getting the title of doctor,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I have the knowledge. I'm going to tell you what to do with the whole finger and the whole bit, right? And you should listen to me because I know.
Right.
And I realized quickly that was a real dead end street. But yet I still did it. And as I've gotten further into NLP and through my personal growth, I'll catch myself maybe doing that. I go, okay, what is this? Or what does that mean? Or for what purpose? And this is a great lesson I learned from your classes and from Transform, and of course from my coach Chris. So it's been really great to have that reinforcement on a consistent basis, so that I can make that a more consistent part of my identity, so I can do more for others.
I love it. So other than in the book, Becoming Positively Awesome, how can people find you if they want to work with you?
Right now, I'm actually revamping. Since I'm revamping and changing and shifting myself, I'm actually reshifting my website. Just took it down, going to rebuild it and really show more of who I am, which of course is tough to do early on when you have certain anchors. And now that get those things out of the way, now it's like, okay, this is who I am. At the big hands, you can just show yourself and be proud, right? And so I'm reshifting all that. And right now you can check me out on Facebook, and it's Vibrant Advanced Health, and it's Dr. Scott Butler in O'Fallon, Missouri.
I love it. All right, let's check our stats because I just noticed something. We
Let's
are
do it.
now officially, let's see, where are we? We're number 10 in bestsellers in motivation and self-help. Climbing up.
Real quick, all the authors are amazing, by the way. I've been listening to the interviews, are great.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, this has been really fun, even though I haven't been able to pee for 5 hours, which I will be able to do in 15 minutes. Yeah, I did forget to schedule pee breaks in this, but
Oops.
hopefully everybody else has peed. I'm taking the brunt of it for you. So thank you so much, Scott. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for everything. Take care.
Yep. And our final author that we have, our final best-selling, number one best-selling author is Amanda Scott. How you doing, Amanda?
Hello. Good. Well, I can give you a little bit of comfort in that I'm at work right now, and I've been working since 9 a.m. back to back to back to back. So we're in the same ship of 15 more minutes. Let's do this.
I can make it. Bladder of steel. And here I am on my second cup of coffee. I probably shouldn't have done that. All right.
Third bottle of water. So I'm with you on that one too. We're good.
Yep. So you are our final author today. You're the end cap, chapter 14, asking the right questions to be positively awesome. I love how you tied into the title of the book there.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into all this.
Well, I think the big part is I started teaching, and through the teaching was realizing, oh my goodness, there's so much more that's needed than a curriculum's going to do, to which I transformed myself to mental health counselor and noticed that so many of the issues we have in mental health world, or I shouldn't say mental health world, but just in our mental world, is we're asking the wrong questions. We're asking questions we do not want the answers to, and then spiraling into these terrible thoughts because of our questions, where if we changed and asked, and this is why I'm putting in the teacher part, because as a teacher, you want to ask the right questions to engage the class correctly. But as a person, you want to ask the right questions to yourself to motivate you in a way to positive action. So
yeah, I love it. So you've been, you're a licensed mental health practitioner, right? So you work, I mean, this is something that most of us in the field of NLP, including myself, I'm not licensed in any kind of a mental health. So I don't work with any kind of, diagnoses or disorders or any of that kind of stuff. So you live in a little bit of a different world than I do. And, probably something a little more extreme.
With NLP, though, it is by far the basis of almost every therapeutic approach. There are those tenets that are like, it's the same exact thing, but we've called it a different name.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's why I kind of love NLP, because there's so much that talks about the past, the Milton Ericksons, the Virginia Satirs that are rock stars, that were rock stars in cognitive behavioral therapy, just the same. So
yeah, I love it. So let's talk about the questions, and I don't want to give away too much of your chapter. I want people to get the book so they can read it. But, I love one of the things that you talk about, which is that, your unconscious mind is really geared to answer questions that you present to it. So talk about that for a second.
Well, and I know in the chapter, I don't go too scientific. And I even mentioned like it would be a whole book to do that. But there are like the reticular activating system. There's parts of our thalamus. There are like structures in our brain. Literally their job is to filter what information is in our awareness and what is not. So when we say, why am I stupid? Or why is nothing right today? Those parts, those structures in the brain are going to say, let's pick apart and find all the various things that have happened today and maybe in our past that show why we're stupid or why things aren't working out. And do we want those answers? No, that just now we're labeling ourselves. Now we're jumping to conclusion. Now we have all or nothing thinking. We're overgeneralizing. It's like all the jargon to say of basically negative thought patterns, negative mood, more negatives in our day. Where if we ask, how can I be more mindful in this moment? Or how can things go right? What do I need for things to go right? Reticular activating system, parts of the thalamus, whole book of other processes. They're all going to start to filter, hey, this is going right. Hey, this is how we could be more mindful. Oh, look, we were mindful in this moment. And now, again, different mood, different mindset, different experience.
I love it. This seems like kind of a common theme with the reticular activator is finding the wedge, right? The reticular activator is almost like a closing door. And when it slams in your face, you've come to a conclusion and you're going to be stuck with that conclusion. So how do we get a wedge in that door before it slams shut? You're not going to completely open it with the first question you ask sometimes. I know when I was young, my favorite question is, why am I such an effing idiot? I used to ask myself that in my head all the time. And I would answer it. I would come up with, what we call evidence for why I was such an idiot. And there's a really important distinction you made in this. You're still asking a question, but it's a different quality of question because you switch from why to how. That is such an important pivot. Talk about the difference between why questions and how questions, because you can have empowering why questions. They're not as empowering as how questions because how turns to action.
Yes. Wait, you just answered it for me. No.
I'm sorry. I got excited.
Fantastic, though. You got it. No. But as you were saying, are going to give us excuses. I think that's the biggest. And how about I'll give a little nudge here. I took an NLP training from a fantastic instructor that one of my most favorite parts were talking about being in effect or being at cause. And when we are in effect, it's because this thing happened and this thing happened and these things are happening. I can't reach any of my goals. Where when we're at cause, it's how can I take action for my goals in the event that these things are happening anyway, because they're going to happen. So yes, how brings us into action. You said it best.
Yeah. One of the things that drives me nuts right now, I see this all the time on social media, all these coaches out there. I shouldn't put coaches in quotes because some of them we even certified. But there's this notion that's being posted all over Facebook that says, basically, don't believe what you see on social media because it's people lying. They're only editing the best part of their life and posting it. And when I see that, I get that from the general public. I get that sentiment. But when I see a coach say that, to me, it's them betraying their own belief systems. Because in their belief, you cannot have a good life, right? There's got to be some drama or tragedy or something, and you're just not happening to post it. That's to me, I feel like that's what they're projecting. But the fact is, when you learn how to use this stuff and use it in your own life, maybe even use it with others, it's not to say that bad things won't happen. My grandfather passed away in December 2018, one of the closest people in my life. That happened. And, I was intentional about the meaning that I was going to choose to make from that, right? And being a cause for how I felt about it. I can't be a cause for the fact that he passed away, but there's something I can be a cause. How am I going to react to this? How am I going to feel about this? What am I going to focus on? One of the things I realized, my grandfather had his first quadruple heart bypass surgery in 1984. And they told us he had a 60% chance of dying on the table. I was 11 years old in 1984. And so when my grandfather passed, yeah, well, I mean, he had so many surgeries. They called him the $1 million man at the hospital because he had $1 million bill one time that his insurance completely covered. But that was 1984, and he passed away in 2018. And so when he passed away, rather than focusing on the loss of my grandfather, I focused on the gratitude that I had him those, what was that, extra 24 years or whatever that was, that I wouldn't have had him, 34 years, whatever that was, and I think that's a big part of, asking the right questions is what can I focus on here that actually produces the result that I want? Mm-hmm. And I know there's that part, that part, my friend Sudeep calls it the general. It's like the amygdala, that part of the brain that wants to jump in and just react, but wedging in there, taking a beat to not give in to the emotions that are going to happen habitually, not automatically, habitually, and wedging in there and then, making it a more conscious choice. That's how much of the work that you do with people, even with disorders, how much does that play a part in helping them get well?
I would say, they say like 90% is the therapeutic relationship, but what more describes the therapeutic relationship than that supportive person that says, I see this, and then I probably say it maybe once every session, like, oh, that sucks. What can we do about it? Yeah. How are we going to manage that? That's what it is. I mean, that's kind of, as you said, there. Obviously, I'm not going to post a picture of my absolute worst day and be like, this is what a terrible day looks like, even though that might actually be kind of fun. Right. But there's a whole part of, in pretty much each and every day, we have man, this sucks. Oh, now it's better. And it's like, hopefully we have now it's better. And it just shakes it loose. Yeah. But if we can't shake loose, so to speak, then how can I make this better? How can I make this day work for me?
Yeah. I feel like for me too, when like as a coach, I'm much more public than I would be as a computer programmer. And I almost feel like there's a responsibility for me to show me handling my worst at my best, so I don't edit my life. I'm usually very transparent in my social media. But I do handle things differently than a lot of other people do, where they wallow in stuff and, stay focused on it. That's great. So we got about 3 minutes left. Why don't you tell people how they can work with you and where they can find you? Who do you like to work with?
Well, therapeutically speaking, anxiety and ADHD are probably the top two areas. That would be 90% of my caseload. And sometimes both together. Maybe oftentimes both together. But between that, I am a certified life coach. So I do a lot of work in just kind of those transitional areas as well, where that doesn't necessarily have a diagnosis, but we are just as lost and just as disturbed when we're now, how do I get from this phase to the next phase? And what do I want that to look like? It's a lot of fun to plan out what it's going to look like and then create the steps to get there. So love the job I'm doing. I know even for the people who bought the book and we have all the gifts, I know I even give out my email address and website to you get a free little ebook from me to try to kind of motivate some journaling going on. And then of course, reach out, and be it anxiety, ADHD, we think we have a real diagnosis and want to work on it, or be it life coaching. Yes, and yes, let's make some positive changes.
I think one of the biggest tragedies of our time right now is that ADHD is labeled as a disorder.
It's a gift.
It's a superpower. It's a gift. I don't identify with the label ADHD But I certainly have all those ways of thinking and behaviors. And while I struggled with it in my teenage years and was shamed for a lot of it, and felt a lot of guilt for it, once I finally learned how to harness it, I think it's my superpower. And I wish that young kids were being taught that you're not, what I tell kids.
They
when I
got
talk to
one person for sure teaching them.
Yeah.
This
I tell
is
kids,
superpower. Be excited.
It's not a disability. It's a diffability. You have a different ability than other people, and you don't have to fit in that same box as everyone else. If you do, you'll be miserable. You'll be stuck in the wrong box.
Super miserable. Well, and I'll throw it out there. My absolute favorite part is it's literally the wiring in our system. Our system is wired to be interest-based. And that's not a selfish thing. That's an amazing thing. We get to live the most passionate lives of anyone because it's built within us, where like not to beat down on the neurotypicals, they're awesome too, but it's information based, it's important based. It's like, I have to do the thing because this is the thing I have to do. We got to cultivate the passion. It's not just there. So it's a gift. Yes.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Let's for our final time now, let's go ahead and check our stats. Let's see. So I just refreshed the page. Let me refresh one more time because that was a couple minutes ago. But we did have a refresh here, and look at this. This is like, I'm getting emotional about this now. We are literally number 120 of all 38 million books on Amazon.
It's pretty exciting stuff, huh?
We are about to hit the all bestseller list on Amazon. We're number 1 in neurolinguistic programming. This shows you how competitive, by the way, motivational self-help books is. Because even though we're almost number 1 on the whole site, we're still not number 1 in motivation yet. So the fact that we're number 19, which actually, hang on a minute, we're not number 19, we're number 10 in motivation.
I was gonna say,
these stats between the different pages don't refresh as fast on some pages. Hang on, we're not number 10 anymore. We're number 3 in motivation and self-help. Oh, I just got goosebumps. Oh, this is insane. This is insane watching it. I'm actually thinking, I mean, we're just a few hours into this. I'm wondering if we could actually hit number 1 on all of Amazon.
We have a whole nother day.
A whole nother day. I'm focused on it.
Well, I want to take the minute we have to personally thank you, because I thought this was just the coolest thing to just launch me off. Like, I'm like, well, now I can write more books. Like, this is happening.
I love it. I love it. And that's what I hope for all the authors in here. You know, many of the people in the book were first-time authors. And I think, for a lot of people, it's like, oh, I don't have to write a whole book. I can write, 10 pages. That I can do, And then once you can do that, if you can write 10, you can write 20. If you can write 20, you can write 200. And it really becomes we teach a course at Ethical Marketing Academy called Publishing to Profit, where we teach people how to write the book that's been in their heart. Yeah. We had a guy, this will be something you'll resonate with. We had a guy come in, he was referred by somebody else, sat on the back table by himself, didn't talk to anybody, was very quiet, wore sunglasses inside the room. He was very like this. And it wasn't until day 3 when I finally got around to kind of connecting with him and talking with him. And I asked him, what are you doing here? And I might get emotional talking about this. He is a psychotherapist, a licensed psychotherapist. And he said his specialty is parental alienation syndrome. Parental alienation syndrome is something I didn't know that I was affected by until I was 38 years old. And it's when one parent speaks ill of another parent, especially an absent parent.
Ooh,
a
under
child
10, under 8.
A child does not see a difference between themselves and parents. They're extension of the parents. And even if you don't know the other parent, I never knew my father. As far as my mom was concerned, he was an 18-year-old sperm donor. He was an abuser, didn't want to have anything to do with me. I heard all of these awful things about him. And I didn't realize until I was 38 years old, I spent most of my life, most of my energy for most of my life trying to prove that I wasn't him. I walked around for, what would that be, 3/4 of my life up until this point, thinking that I was a bad person and trying to prove that I wasn't. And I didn't know why I thought I was a bad person. I didn't know why I had such a bad self-esteem. And I was actually in a therapist office when I heard this. this whole idea of parental alienation syndrome. And when he told me what it meant, I crumbled in my chair and sobbed for 2 hours because I realized that I'd wasted so much energy in my life. It's all that negative self-esteem I had and all the over-proving that I was a good person. And I don't have to prove I'm a good person because I am one. And I just had this huge emotional release about it. Well, when I'm talking to this guy, he said his specialty is parental alienation syndrome. He said, I'm writing the very first book ever to be written on it. There've been research papers and things like that. There'd never been a book written on it. He'd been trying for 10 years to write that book, came to the course, started working on it. And within 60 days, he'd published a book. And it's that thick. It's not a small book. Wrote it in 60 days after trying 10 years. And it all came down from that little incremental thing. If I can do this, then I can do that. If I can do that, then I can do that. And it just snowballed into him. Now he's written there's a second, not a second edition, but a second extension
volume.
of it.
Yeah.
Second volume. Thank you. And just that was so personal to me because I'd had such a I didn't even do therapy. Like just hearing that it wasn't about me, that it was about this father I never met, released it in an instant. And I think had I not had that moment where I had that release, I don't think I'd be in this relationship with Kayla. Because it was the fact that I felt like I could be me for the first time. I didn't have to prove anything. I didn't have to impress her. Show up as me. And if she doesn't like me, she doesn't like me. If she does like me, she does like me. And it's meant to be. That was so
healthy
freeing
boundaries, healthy connection. I like it.
Yeah. So, that I think, it's just such a great thing. This is definitely, I want this to be a platform for you. Now that you've done this, I can't wait to see what your next one is.
Yes. Oh, it will be this was a practice what I preach moment. I'm getting out of my comfort bubble. I'm going to be held accountable until I'm launched into meeting my own goals. Yes.
Yay. I love it. Well, thank you so much for hanging out. #1 best-selling author, almost in 2 categories. We're almost there. We're number 3. I can't believe that.
It's exciting.
Man, that is so exciting. All right. Well, I will keep you posted on all the progress for the rest of the 2 days. We got more than a day and a half to go. Thanks, Amanda. All right, everybody. It has been a long, long time since I peed. So I'm going to end the broadcast because I forgot to schedule break times. And I am full of 2 coffees right now. So that is in NLP, we call that trainer state. Because when you're a trainer of NLP, you have to have a bladder of steel. You don't get to go pee because you're teaching. And then when you go on breaks, everybody wants to talk to you. So thank you so much for hanging out. We've been 4 hours and 37 minutes on live. I think that's definitely, that is definitely the longest live social media broadcast I've done. Special thanks and shout out to Coach Deb Cole for helping me get all this set up and making it all work. I wouldn't have been able to do this without you. I probably would have just done it on Zoom. And our final stat right now, we are number 1 in neurolinguistic programming, number 3 in motivational self-help books, which is one of the most competitive categories on all of Amazon. And we're number 120 on Amazon. This is crazy. If we sell 20 more books, we are officially Amazon bestsellers, not just category bestsellers. And if we sell 120 books, we're number 1 on Amazon, which I think we can do in the next 20 days. That's crazy. So, not 120 books. If we come up 120 in rank, which, we'll see. It's very competitive at this point. But with your help, we will continue to get there. One of the things I'll ask you, if you purchased a copy of the book, please let everyone else know. You can share our social media posts. It's a great recommendation for other people. We've got it listed as low as we can go, $5.42. We literally don't make a penny on it. We make nothing just to keep it low so that more people get it. And if you share the word, you are helping us get the word out, helping us help people. And we really appreciate it. And maybe we'll hit number 1 on Amazon. Thanks, everybody. Hakalau.